Oh boy, here we go. I'm dipping my toes into the iDubbbz drama today. You know, this is like 2 day old drama at this point, which may as well be 2 year old drama going on the internet. I mean, everything moves so fast on the internet, you know. What happened yesterday is old news today. So I figured I wanted to talk about this because there's a couple things I've been seeing on Twitter, and there are a couple things I've even seen Charlie Moist Critical talk about, and I have a lot of thoughts on this subject that I think are, valid. And I just felt like talking about it today. If you're somehow unaware, iDubbbz is a massive creator. He has over 7 million subscribers. And he was huge back in like 2016 when, Filthy Frank and Max Mofo and Anything for Views and, iDubbbz, they all made videos together, super edgy videos, super crazy, like out of here wild videos. And at the time, 2016, these were funny videos. This was good content. And a lot of it was shock humor. There's a video they did a long time ago you can find on Filthy Frank's channel, which I just find it incredible, by the way. I mean, Filthy Frank himself has even changed. He's not like that anymore. Filthy Frank goes by Joji now, the music artist. But if you go back on Filthy Frank or Joji's YouTube channel, you will find a video called, I believe it's Vomit Cake and Hair Cake, where, yes, they literally make a cake out of vomit and eat it, and make a cake out of hair and eat it. This was good content back in the day. Believe it or not, people thought this was hilarious, myself included, because it was super edgy and it was shock humor. Now, surprise, surprise, times have changed and people have changed. They've grown up and they've realized that content isn't very funny anymore. It's not something that they want to do forever. I mean, who would want to do that forever, right? Think about it like a normal person. Nobody wants to do that forever. And, Joji changed his whole appearance. He's no longer a YouTube guy. He, makes really good music. And, iDubbbz is in the same situation. He doesn't want to be that cool, edgy guy that everyone likes anymore. He just wants to make different types of content, which is something I really respect. But his audience does not respect that at all. They want him to keep making this like edgy humor, these like really edgy videos, and he does not want to do that at all. And that's what this whole drama is about. Him just not wanting to make this, in my opinion, degenerate type of content anymore. So he made an apology video, and that's basically what I'm going to be talking about today because, just to say it, I think his apology is a good thing.
For a while, I felt like if I changed my content over time, that people would see that as a reflection of who I am and what I value. But I'm starting to realize that that is a very weak and passive way to, run my channel and live my life. So I think it's, if I'm going to have the balls to go to Tana's fan meetup and say slurs at her and then make a video about how it's okay to say slurs, I think I should have the balls to make an apology video and take accountability for the mistakes I've made.
So I actually watched Moist Critical's video about this whole situation, and when this section of iDubbbz's video played, Moist Critical basically said that is not a weak thing if you want to change your content without making an apology video. It's not weak to want to change your type of content when you don't seem fulfilled or you don't feel like you're being fulfilled by the content that you used to make. It's very normal to want to change your content because you'll attract a different audience. And I agree with that, 100%. If you make a certain type of content and you don't like it anymore and you want to change it, you will gain a new audience over time, and you are not weak for that. However, that does not apply to iDubbbz. Without a doubt, it does not apply to iDubbbz because iDubbbz's content, as he says here, I'm sure a lot of you know who iDubbbz is and know the whole Tana Mongeau video. I mean, iDubbbz did make very hurtful content. And I feel like a lot of people don't really understand how hurtful that content was. So let me take you back to 2016. I'll give you a little bit of anecdotal evidence, which I'm sure a lot of us share the same anecdote. I feel like this is very prevalent, and this is very good information to have. I remember back in 2016, I was in very early high school or something like that. Maybe like freshman year. I have no idea. I was in high school though. And iDubbbz, Filthy Frank, Max Mofo, all these guys were making these videos at the time. I found it hilarious, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here on like a throne and be like, I didn't find these videos funny at all. That's not what 2016 was. Everyone found it hilarious. Obviously, I've matured as well as, he has matured, and I just don't find that stuff funny anymore. And this is my whole point. This type of content was never funny. This type of content would never give you a laugh if you are a black person, if you're a person of color in general, if you're a gay person, if you're a trans person. This content would never be funny to you. It's only funny because the content does not affect you. And iDubbbz's whole mentality back in the day, he used to say, all slurs are okay or none of it is okay. And that is just not a true thing to say, and it was very damaging back in the day because he had this type of mentality. So kids in my grade and kids that I knew would advocate for these words and be like, oh, well, like iDubbbz said, all of it's okay or none of it's okay. So I should be able to say whatever I want. It's just a word. It doesn't matter. And again, that is very fucking damaging. It is very, very, very hurtful. So I wanted to give some context on that. Moist Critical's whole video was basically saying how iDubbbz is being really harsh about himself and how it sounds like he, murdered puppies in this video, which he does tear into himself a bit harsh. I will agree. He did make very hurtful content, but I wouldn't go as far to say like he should live with this, guilt forever or whatever. He's changed. He's grown as a person. As long as he isn't a complete racist or a complete Nazi, this is a massive W in my opinion, and I'm happy that I mean, I don't know what the change was. It's beautiful to see. I don't know what the change was. I know his girlfriend is a lovely woman. I know she's really cool. So maybe she changed him in some capacity. But yeah, I just think Moist Critical was saying in his video how, it was just 2016 humor. It wasn't that big of a deal. I think that is honestly an insane thing to say. It was 2016 humor, and 2016 humor was incredibly, insensitive. It was incredibly cruel, and it definitely caused a lot of minority groups probably to definitely dislike iDubbbz, but it definitely created a lot of animosity between iDubbbz viewers, constantly saying the N-word and the F slur, the homophobic F slur, and thinking that's okay to say. And it's never okay to say. And I'm very happy that he, has had this realization in his life, and he understands now that that's not okay.
I've realized that I need to be crystal clear about what I believe, so there's no room for ambiguity. I am responsible for creating a lot of hurtful and damaging content on this channel, and I've also created a culture of apathy and a lot of like cruelty as well. Like, some of the videos I've made have been very not edgy. I don't think they some of these videos were edgy. I think they were just outright cruel. So I don't want people to get it confused about where I stand. I have made some cruel, hurtful content, and I need to acknowledge that, and I'm really sorry that it's taken me this long to acknowledge it.
Again, a massive W, man. I really cannot understand, like, I don't know, man. It's really crazy to me. I've seen people say that, he wasn't a child when he made these videos. He was 27. And I have thought for a long time, maybe it's just like a youth thing that you think these slurs are funny, or you think like being edgy, or you think being like honestly a weirdo, you think is like really funny when you're like 16 or something. I talked about this in my video about, Mr. Beast and, Chris and how he was like transitioning or whatever. And I basically said the same thing there, that, when you're younger, you think this stuff is really funny, but as you mature, you realize it's not. And the more I talk about this stuff and the more I think about it, I wonder if it's an age thing, or I wonder if it was, an era thing. The era of 2016 humor was super edgy, and even PewDiePie participated in the like insane edginess. He was like a watered down Filthy Frank at the time. I remember it very well. And I honestly think it was just the time. It didn't really matter what age you were. People just loved that type of content, unfortunately. And I don't think you're a bad person if you liked that content. I don't know. I feel like some of the comments I've been reading, the people that are mad at iDubbbz, it seems like they are mad because he's calling, it seems like they think, at least, that he's calling people who laughed at those videos back then bad people. And I just don't disagree with that. I mean, I don't agree with that. I never found those videos not funny. I always found those videos funny back then in 2016 because that was the era. You know, being super edgy like that, saying random slurs is ha ha ha. That was hilarious back then. And of course, again, I'm saying it was hilarious back then because I am not a person of color. I'm not gay. I'm not trans. So of course, you know, back then I would have the mentality that's like, oh, it's just a word. It doesn't matter, you know, it's just a word. It doesn't mean anything. It absolutely does mean something. And if you are honestly too stupid to understand that, you know, those words are damaging, then I would imagine you're the type of person to be offended. You're definitely white, but I'd imagine you are definitely the type of person that would be offended if someone called you a cracker. And let's make no mistake, cracker is not an offensive word at all. I don't believe anybody, no matter how hard they role play, gets offended by the word cracker. Now, I don't get offended by the word cracker, but I would be very upset if people called me a cracker. I wouldn't like that very much. Being just, you know, people of like other races, even people of my race, just calling me a cracker. I just don't like that. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm offended by it. And I think everybody should be able to say it because it's not a hurtful word. You know what I mean? But it's just weird. It's a weird thing to do. And the reason I bring this up is because I feel like the same people, you know, throughout my whole life and everything I've experienced, I feel like the same people who would say that, you know, the N word or the homophobic F word is just a word, I feel like these same people would be offended by the word cracker. At least in my life, everything I've experienced, this is what I've seen. Obviously, this is just an anecdote. This isn't like, you know, fucking incredible evidence or whatever. But the type of people to be offended by the word cracker, quote unquote offended, they just role play as if they're offended, are the type of people to say that, you know, they're just words. And the same way you wouldn't want to be called cracker, the same way a person of color or a black person wouldn't want to be called the N-word, except it's obviously way more damaging to the black person than the white person, obviously.
About specifically our content cop videos and videos where I was just generally criticizing people for very lackluster reasons and, you know, obviously didn't have any accountability online whatsoever on my end. I was morally grandstanding and acting as if I am any better than any of these people that I was making content cop videos on, and I'm not. I'm a human. I'm a real human who makes mistakes, and, you know, I make a different set of mistakes than the people I was making videos on, but it doesn't matter. I don't think anyone deserves that level of cruelty or hate. It's also indoctrinated a lot of people into thinking that this is an okay way to behave.
This is exactly what I was talking about earlier in my life when I was in high school, and I know there are plenty of people maybe watching this video too that definitely went through the same thing with their friends who watched an iDubbbz video, saw the type of stuff he said, saw how popular it was. His videos were insanely popular and everybody loved him back then, and thought that was okay and it was an okay way to act. And it's never been an okay way to act, but that was the era. 2016 was the way that people acted, and it's super unfortunate, but you know, that's just the way it was. And his content definitely indoctrinated people into thinking that is an okay way to speak to others. And that's why I think his apology is definitely warranted for him to say that it was cruel content. Because when you have a platform and you say the N-word with the hard R and you're like, oh my God, this is so funny, you know, just saying random slurs, ha ha ha, this is so funny. When you have a platform like that and you're saying that to a bunch of impressionable kids, you know, even though you're in high school, you're still a child. And you know, you're talking to a bunch of impressionable kids and you're saying these slurs and you're saying either all of it's okay or none of it's okay. You may be creating, and I'm sure he has, his videos have tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of views. He definitely created probably actual racist people in the process. And I realize I'm being a little harsh towards him, and I don't really want it to come off that way. I am in full support of, you know, his apology, and I'm glad that he's not that type of person anymore. I'm very happy with it, you know. I'm not mad at him at all for this apology. I think it is a good thing. And, you know, as long as, like I'm saying, it would have been very easy for him to become an actual racist or a Nazi because of the type of rhetoric that he was spewing. And you always have this, as a creator, you know, I haven't experienced this, thankfully, but as a creator, there comes a point where you make a certain type of content and you don't want to do anything else. You don't want to turn your back on your audience because you're afraid that they'll turn their back on you, stop watching your videos, and then you'll be, you know, poor. You'll have no fucking money. You won't be able to keep the lights on. You'll go homeless. You'll have to get, you know, a minimum wage job. And people obviously don't want to do that. And iDubbbz could have definitely 100% kept doing that hateful, ridiculous type of content this whole time, could have never changed, could have gone even worse, you know, and he never did. And that is super admirable in my opinion.
It's super irresponsible and shitty. I am very insecure about my ability to create interesting content or like entertain. It's gotten better over the years, but it's something that I have struggled with constantly. And it's one of the reasons why I, you know, kept making this hurtful content. You know, I ended up pivoting it into other things because I felt bad about it, like innately. But it's still something that I struggle with, and I don't want you to interpret that as an excuse, but I hope that that is relatable to other creators who maybe struggle with the same thing. I'm not confident in my ability to entertain, and I think if I had to rely on my personality to entertain people, that I wouldn't have any amount of success, and that is really hard to come to terms with. I was being very bigoted in a lot of my videos, and I justified it because, you know, I didn't think it was too serious, and I thought that people were going to see that I had good intentions, you know, but that's so silly, you know. Casual racism is still racism. Casual bigotry is still bigotry. And, you know, I said a lot of things that I look back at and I cringe now, and I'm like, that is an awful thing to say. It doesn't matter what my intentions are. Like, if I'm hurting people, I'm hurting people.
This, again, is right on the money, and it's exactly what I was talking about earlier, where, you know, people in my school and definitely, you know, people all around the world would watch his videos, and, you know, he did pretty much advocate, like he says, he did pretty much advocate for the use of slurs in these videos. And I mean, I don't know how many times I have to say it. I'm so proud that he's making this video. It's fantastic. And it is without a doubt cringy. It was definitely cringy back then. And, you know, I have a Discord for the main channel, and I guess for this channel too, because it's just, you know, or whatever. And people will come in the Discord and, you know, this rarely happens, surprisingly, and that makes me really happy that it, you know, rarely happens, because that shows there's not that many people like in my community that are like that. That makes me very happy. But, you know, occasionally now and then someone will come in the Discord and they'll just type the N-word like it's hilarious, you know what I mean? And I've always wondered why. You know, today is not 2016. Why do people act like this? I've always wondered that. You know, I did talk about it a bit at the beginning of this video, but I always wondered if it was a young thing or an era thing. And recently I've been thinking it is an era thing, but then people do that and I'm like, is it just because they're young and stupid and they think that, like, this is funny or something? I don't know. It's very strange, but I don't know. I just don't have that much else to talk about this topic, you know. I realize I didn't watch the entire video, but I feel like I've put all my thoughts out there and what I think about this whole situation. And there's really not much else to say, you know. it sucks that there's, people who are mad at him over this apology. It's unbelievable, honestly. Like it's crazy to me. Like I said earlier, it is way more brave of him to do this, because what he could have done is just, like I said, go in the opposite direction and just been hateful and get more hateful as time goes on, because he was already building a successful career around that. He could have just kept doing it and built an even more successful career. But I mean, I'm super proud that he didn't do that. I'm glad that, he realized his mistakes, which is more than a lot of people have done, honestly. And this is a fucking fantastic apology. 10 out of 10. Awesome. And yeah, I mean, there's there's just nothing else I really have to say about this situation. Massive W to iDubbbz, and I hope he does well in whatever else he decides to pursue. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, y'all.